you hear him and Sean Green on the Sports Gambling Podcast. On the tweets at Kramer Centric. It's our guy Ryan Kramer with us right now. See, Kramer, Hoops is just ducking you, man. He's just ducking you. This is 2 straight times you're stuck with me.
And not only that, I'll pull back the curtain. Before he dodged us when we were out in town in Vegas, we bumped into him, and even then he was running away from us. So I feel like the guy must feel like maybe he thinks he owes me some money or something. But yeah, Hoops, I love you. Please come home.
See, the plea itself from Ryan Kramer. No, it's great to talk to you though, Ryan. And man, the NFL draft just kind of, I know maybe my perspective is a little bit different, but it's almost like the draft is kind of just slowly but surely snuck up on us, and we're less than 10 days away now from it getting rolling in KC. And we'll just start. I don't think this market is bettable anymore, but Bryce Young's up to minus 1,400 on the first overall pick. Now, the reports are saying that it's going to be that, but, man, so many things can change in 7 days leading up to an NFL draft that when there's no surefire number 1 overall pick, even with all the reports, Ryan, that feels steep, man. That feels steep at 1,400.
It felt, when Stroud was minus 330, minus 350, it felt steep. Mm-hmm. And then we've seen this rebound, and now you get to 1,400 only with one thing, sure knowledge, I think. And you're seeing Carolina leaking it. Now, what I'm concerned about, honestly, is this is a theatrical thing. This is all about, Carolina has flat out said it. They're happy to trade the pick again. So I don't think this is them playing around. I do think that they are going to take Bryce Young. In fact, the last time we talked, I think we even got into it.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like Bryce Young was clearly the best guy. And this CJ Stroud, Bryce Young duel might have just been theatrics. Turned out maybe it is. And honestly, in the past couple weeks since then, just kind of diving in deeper, for me, it's Bryce Young, and then there is a pretty wide gap. So I'm actually starting to buy into some of this. The quarterbacks are going to start slipping. We might see the Texans actually pass on a quarterback with their first pick. So, yeah, I'm certainly looking still to find some areas of variance, but I don't think it's going to be with the first pick anymore.
Oh, you kind of just answered my next question, because it's kind of the Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter duel with the number 2 overall pick right now. Of Schefter's on the case of what you just said. This is going to be a sliding board on the quarterbacks, and Houston's not going quarterback number 2. Rappaport on the other side. Look, Ryan, I was as big of a Davis Mills defender as there possibly was going into last season. I thought, well, his numbers were awesome at home. Maybe he'll actually turn into a real starting quarterback. He did not turn into a real starting quarterback. The dude is a backup. I just don't know how, if you're Houston, you can justify, unless if you are just so not sold on either Stroud or Richardson, and I think it would be more so Stroud, I don't know how you pass on the QB at 2. I just really don't know how you get there.
Well, and that's what we're hearing, right? We're hearing from guys who are plugged into the Houston organization that they aren't sold on Stroud and that they were sold on Bryce Young, which makes them blowing the first overall pick even funnier. But I do think I was with you. I was like, you know what, Davis Mills, they can win this division. There's enough variance that can happen. I do think they need to get the quarterback, but I would say I think maybe, and the Texans are a team that has been willing to go against the grain many times. But I do think, again, we're going to start to see some of these QBs drop down the board. We got all excited, and it was like, all right, first 4 picks, all quarterbacks, let's go. Now it's starting to seem like it might shake out a little differently. We might even see Hendon Hooker come off the board in the first 4 quarterbacks. So to me, Houston uses that second pick, I think, to maneuver and take one of the guys they're happy with. The reports are they like they're intrigued by Anthony Richardson, and they like Bryce Young. So to me, that means maybe they drop down a little bit. They take AR-15. Imagine if they screw it up, though. They take the defensive player first, and then they screw it up and don't end up with the quarterback. I'm with you. I don't think you can make that mistake.
I mean, that would make sense for that organization, what it's been over the last few years for them to mess that up. But look, look, and also too, you mentioned it, but I would be remiss if I just didn't give Jeff Saturday a shout out for sabotaging a division rival into not getting the quarterback that they wanted in all likelihood with that, whatever that was in week 18 with the Texans being the only team all year to convert not 1 but 2 4th down and 20s And he did it on back-to-back fourth downs. It was truly a marvel what happened at Indy that final week of the season. But, it's really like looking at the potential quarterback slide. Like, Indianapolis at 4 really is where this whole thing kind of has to stop if there is a slide. And I don't think the Colts really expect Stroud to be there for him. But if he's there for them, I know everyone has said, oh, Anthony Richardson is such a raw talent, all that. Look, when we talked a few weeks ago, I'm not high on Richardson. I think that's a guy that, there is a ceiling that's pretty nice, but that floor is not quite Zach Wilson low, but it's pretty low. Stroud's got to be the pick at 4 if Indianapolis has him sitting there for him.
It does seem like it, but you can pick. A lot of people are saying about Hendon Hooker, the offense is simplistic. There's not a lot of reads to be made. You can make some of the same claims about C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. Obviously, the stakes were a little higher, making some big throws, showing a little bit with his legs. But like I said, since I've been kind of studying the quarterbacks more and more, to me, all I notice is that Bryce Young is the guy that stands out, and everyone else is kind of like leaving me wonder who could possibly think this is going to be the guy, because they all have major red flags to me. That being said, you're even seeing the idea that maybe the Colts could trade up, because Jim Irsay is so crazy about one of these quarterbacks that he could even trade up with Houston potentially. I know there's talk of potentially Tennessee wanting to come up again for Anthony Richardson, I think, in that case. And then you're hearing like kind of the late back channel stuff about how, the NFL guys really like Will Levis the best because that ball really comes out of his hand. And from time to release to catch is the fastest. To me, none of these guys are going to be it. And you bring up Anthony Richardson, and it's so funny. We spent about 20 minutes in the SGPN headquarters today watching Jake Locker film.
Oh, no.
Because that's who we think he's going to be. And you're right. Like, there's moments where you're like, man, that athleticism is something else. But at the end of the day, it didn't really show up in college. I get it. There were reasons why. And at the end of the day, I get it. Jalen Hurts just happened. But Jalen Hurts might be the outlier. Jalen Hurts might be one of the few guys that can truly run an offense that win or lose, the legs are going to be the problem, or going to be the reason they get it done. And you see the other case of that, which is Justin Fields. And sure, it looks fun and it's fantasy relevant, but you win 3 games. So Anthony Richardson, to me, like, if there's one guy that falls out of the first round and it actually makes sense, it's Anthony Richardson. But to me, the one bet that I'm kind of chomping at the bit to make is the Will Levis will not be drafted in the first round. So I don't know. I still think there's going to be variance here. I still think we're a week out now, just about. So we're at that point where people are going to stop falling in love with the quarterbacks a little bit, and we're going to start seeing some of these prospects kind of shuffle into place.
Ryan, all I'm going to tell you is you sent a chill down my spine with the Jake Locker mention. That's a deep cut. It's not a good deep cut either, with how his career ended up going. Well,
did you actually, and not to interrupt you, but I also learned that part of the reason he left football was basically Jeff Fisher made him hate football.
Yes, that was absolutely a thing. Yes,
which is crazy.
Hey, look, you can only go 7-9 so many times in a row before allowing yourself to continue. But man, it just, the whole thing with Richardson, and I want to get back to your Levis thing in a second, because I'm kind of with you. I don't see the Will Levis thing at all. I don't see that. I think he's one of those. He's the workout warrior of this draft, even more so. And I know it's weird to say when Richardson was dominant, quote unquote, dominant at his pro day and all the great stuff at the combine. But like, I know Kentucky's offensive line was a mess last year in college football, but we really think Will Levis can be an effective NFL starting quarterback? That dude looks like Zach Wilson to me.
You got to be careful. The Kentucky Wildcat faithful are very much plugged into social media. I've had some takes on Will Levis. I mean, look, to me, what's concerning is just the track record of, whether it's, why did he lose out to Sean Clifford when even people plugged into the system said he was the guy that looked more intriguing? Why did he feel like it was a good idea to post a video of him eating a banana without the peel, without taking the peel off on social media? And why did he fall victim to the peer pressure of putting mayonnaise in his coffee? Feels a little bit like this guy might be the draft day kid who didn't have anyone go to his birthday party. I just wonder if there's something like we've even heard some of the stuff about how the interviews didn't go so well with all the teams. And there are legit like locker room chemistry concerns, considering your quarterback generally has to be your leader. So I get it. He's got the physical gifts. And maybe if you squint really hard, you can find yourself thinking he's going to be the next Josh Allen. But to me, he's played a lot of college ball to still be this raw. So if there's anyone that I could see teams kind of passing on, I think this has to be the guy.
If you had a Bo Callahan mention on the program tonight, cash that ticket. I don't know if Kevin Costner is going to be able to wheel and deal, though, like he did in that movie that, quite frankly, should have been a lot better than it was. During the break, Kramer, I got a good draft day story for you, actually. I'll save that for off the air. That will be the VSiN Plus subscription gets that story. But, Ryan, hang around for us. We got plenty more on the draft because the markets are starting to appear, draft betting-wise, and that's a good thing for us here at the network, here across the country, to people that want to bet the draft. And, quite frankly, it's the best event to bet there is out there. All I will say is I hope I did not disappoint with the story I told you off the air. It
was spicy. I hope everyone subs to your OnlyFans.
Look, it was spicy. I'll give you that. Just continuing on the draft here, and look, there's more markets that are appearing as we get closer, Ryan. I'll just open this up to you. Of the markets that have started to appear, have there been anything in the last week or so that you've been, all right, this market's really good, but I can't hop in yet. I need some stuff to move around on it?
Honestly, the stuff I load the screen every morning and I just hit refresh, and I have it memorized how many markets have been open. I want to see more. Especially the over-unders, right? Like that's what we're all waiting for. We're waiting for those draft position over-unders. They've released a handful of kind of the obvious ones. They've kind of settled into place. They're really juiced. I'll give you an idea of what I've been doing lately, though. I've been poking around the divisional, like team to draft position first. And I know trades can happen and all, there's some volatility there, but I also think you can kind of study this one. I'm a Giants fan, and I definitely like have a firm belief that the front office wants to meet with a player they're going to draft. And I know a lot of sites have kind of put out the data now. You can track what positions teams are meeting with. And in some cases, the odds are just not lining up to what is probably going to happen in real life. And so I've been trying to troll around, like for example, divisional rival, but the Philadelphia Eagles are sitting here. Offensive lineman has now crept all the way up to a minus 160 favorite when I look around, and it just doesn't seem like that's the angle they're going to be taking with their first pick. It seems very clearly it's going to be a defensive player. I'm honed in on defensive line edge, and I'm seeing it now at plus 180. So these are the markets I'm trying to look to pluck off. Again, you can pull a lot of good data. It's all very public. There's some great sites that have even put out charts aggregating all the data, but just kind of tracking which teams are talking to what positions can really find you some nice inefficiencies right now, especially because there's still relatively low limits. So certainly looking to pluck a number of those off, because I think right now, like that's where the value's at. A lot of the exact pick markets are kind of cooked right now, or either off the market. So, and yeah, like until we can get some true over-unders on actual draft position, this is what I'm looking to pick off right now.
You know, I'm looking at it right now, and I'm with you on the Eagles. That just seems off right now. Minus 160 on the offensive lineman to be the first drafted player by Philly. There's a lot of there's mocks that have Philly trading up to get Jalen Carter at the back end of the top 10. Of course, Mel Kiper seems to be stubborn in the fact that they're going to take Robinson out of Texas. If you wanted to take a shot on that at plus 650, you could do that as well. But I think I'm with you. I think plus 180 on the defensive lineman edge, I think that's a pretty good bet. And I can't assume that number is going to be there for much longer, Ryan, because all that takes is once the limits go up and someone pops that pretty good, that's going to turn into a coin flip again.
And I'll give you another one, staying in the division with my Giants. Again, obviously they're meeting with all the wide receivers. That being said, I don't think they're going to force the issue. I think the Darren Waller signing filled like a primary pass catcher need for them. They went out and signed some peripheral kind of utility receiver types. And I know that the data would say, hey, they talk to a lot of receivers, but just kind of listening to the guys who are plugged into the organization, it seems pretty clear to me they're going to walk away with a defensive player in the first round. Cornerback is 2-1. What the area I'm intrigued by is defensive lineman edge. We know that they have a situation coming up with paying Dexter Lawrence. Obviously, their pass rush is something they look to improve on, and at 7-1. I've seen many mocks where they fall into the range of grabbing one of the kind of like the dangling pass rushers, or even the D tackle out of Pitt, for example. So at 7-1, to me, again, these markets are clearly they're taking stabs in the dark, and some of it is not even lining up to any sort of real data. So I love another situation where you can fade a position that to me is clearly not going to be the first pick.
I'm just looking through a lot of this right now too, Ryan, where, and you mentioned in the last segment, just individual players wise here, the Tennessee Titans are the favorite to land Anthony Richardson according to DraftKings, 2-1 on the Titans. I know that would take a lot of draft capital. I know it could happen, but man, the Colts are at 4-1. The Raiders are at 3-1. Seattle, look, I know we all love Geno Smith now, but we really can't discount the Seattle taking a quarterback, and a project quarterback would actually make a whole lot of sense for the Seahawks at this point.
That would be incredible if Pete. Part of me wants to take Pete Carroll to take Bijan Robinson, and just he got so much run from just being able to talk smack to everyone who made fun of him when he took K9 Kenneth Walker in the second round last year. I could only imagine that. Honestly, like if I'm looking for a dark horse with the Anthony Richardson talk, I've seen a couple people mock it, but Tampa Bay at 35-1, if he truly does slide down the board, I know there's been a lot of heat with Tennessee, but if he truly does slide down the board, Tampa is one of the few teams that actually needs a quarterback that is in the range where if he does slide, they could get him. And nice price here at 35-1.
Well, you're telling me going with Baker Mayfield long term is not the option for the Bucs?
Well, if you ask Bruce Arians, who no longer a member of the coaching staff, but still being interviewed about his excitement with Baker Mayfield joining the team, I don't know. As I do my early season best ball drafts, I have been plucking up some Kyle Trask. So yeah, not a Baker guy over here.
Man, Kyle Trask, Anthony Richardson, the whole Gator party down there in Tampa. Hey, Blaine Gabbert, though, no longer a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Blaine Gabbert returned home. He's now a Kansas City Chief, which is, by the way, Ryan, because part of my background, I went to University of Missouri. There are a lot of Chief fans who didn't quite grasp the thing. Oh, yeah, Blaine Gabbert plays more than 15 snaps this year. Something has gone wrong.
Well, it's certainly a great job, right?
It's an awesome job.
We've seen a number of folks have very, very long careers holding a clipboard behind a great dominant quarterback. And which, speaking of which, I don't know, just kind of another team that when you look at the odds, the positional odds, it's very intriguing to me. A defensive lineman edge is the favorite at +150, offensive lineman at 2-1, wide receiver at 2-1. I got to be honest, like, aren't the Chiefs one of those teams you could see drafting randomly getting Bijan Robinson at the end of the first round and the entire league being pissed? We have a joke on the Sports Gambling Podcast where we say every free agent is going to sign with Kansas City. That's their best fit. So again, another one where 20-1 for them to stag a running back with their first pick. Couldn't see Andy Reid just continuing to trade down and maybe grabbing one of these guys in a depressed running back class. The more that we talk about this, the more that I realize I've definitely enjoyed these markets, and I'm pretty heavily invested at this point.
I like that. I like that. The best fit for it is true. The best fit for basically every offensive player in the league is playing on Kansas City. That's true. But that would be, because remember, like, people got aggravated when the Chiefs got Edwards-Helaire. And Edwards-Helaire has ended up being, I don't want to call him a bust because a lot of injuries have really derailed what he could have been. But if they get Robinson, it'll be one of those like, oh, how did they let the running back fall all the way to Andy Reid? And look, if Robinson's there, he'll be good right away. Like, we know he'll be good.
And especially for an offense that we're outwardly questioning, like, oh, now that you paid Mahomes, what are you going to do with these weapons? Juju didn't work last year. It's so bad they're hyping up Justin Ross in the offseason, a kid who's been forever, like even back to his college, the 5-star days. We've been talking about his athletic prowess. So I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And picking where they're picking, whoever they get, people are going to be upset about it.
Justin Ross going to be? I don't mean to be mean by this, but is Justin Ross even going to be able to get on the field?
Well, that's the hilarious part. We're talking about him like, Kadarius Toney plays 12 snaps and he gets a touchdown, but they're going to have to figure something out there in Kansas City at some point.
I'm done down to as long as Reed and Mahomes and Kelsey are there, doesn't matter. They're still going to win. Like we talked about it a few weeks ago. They're still winning their 12, 13 games in regular season. It doesn't matter who 15 is throwing the ball to. Again, Ryan, this would be a good day to have the commercial breaks too, because I was telling you about a hit I did on Philadelphia radio earlier this week when I accidentally made the case for Jordan Love to be the third best quarterback in the NFC, which was not what I intended to do. But by the time the argument was done, I was like, well, I guess I just did that. But it really is nuts just what that NFC looks like going into this year, where it's Philadelphia all the way up here, and then everyone else is basically below the bottom third on our screen in the way of what the quarterbacking situation is and the teams as a whole for the most part, other than the Niners. But Sam Darnold's probably their week 1 starter.
I was going to say, if you just pull up the NFC odds, Eagles at plus 350, Niners plus 350. Again, we don't know. Brock Purdy now saying he probably is going to miss 2023 season. This feels like it's underreported. It seems like the front office hates Trey Lance, and they brought in Sam Darnold. So cross your fingers, 49ers fans. But then after that, Cowboys 650, Lions 850, Saints 14-1, Seahawks 16-1. I mean, it does feel like more than most conferences. Obviously, the Eagles seem to be the belle of the ball. But yeah, what could possibly go wrong after you give your quarterback a mega deal, making him the highest paid player in history? So honestly, like if I was playing, I have to imagine this market flattens out a little bit. I know Detroit, very popular kind of preseason take, all the talent. They're going to win the draft too, so you expect their odds to get better. You might want to buy them now. But to your point, the more that I think about Green Bay as well, that LaFleur, if you remember when he came into Green Bay, he wanted to be a run first guy. He went out and drafted A.J. Dillon. He wanted so badly to run the ball. Still has Aaron Jones, still has the pieces to be, I think, an effective running team. And to your point, we don't know that Jordan Love is bad. We certainly haven't seen him be good, and the beat reporters haven't had the rosiest things to say about him, but we haven't seen him be bad, and he's going to be in a division that absolutely, if nothing else, is going to allow you to score points. Minnesota, Chicago, and even Detroit were not great against the run last year, so certainly a fun little angle. For me, if I'm throwing an absolute dart this offseason, give me a piece of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes.
I'm seeing 30-1 to win the conference. I still think there could be a splashy move, and if not, I think this is a team that no one's going to enjoy playing. They're going to be physical. They're going to be hard-nosed. Almost, I don't want to quite call them the NFL's triple option. Rest in peace. College football officially canceling the triple option. I don't know if you're up to speed on that, but I do think this Atlanta team is fun because the path to win it, like I think their biggest resistance in the division is going to be Carolina team that's going to be boasting a rookie quarterback.
Happy you brought that the triple option thing. We actually had that conversation in the studio before the show yesterday, where I saw the article with Jeff Monken saying we can't run the triple option anymore. And my first thought was, oh my goodness, Army team total under next year is going to be the greatest college football bet that there possibly is. Really, all the service academies. Maybe Air Force might be a little bit better served because they at least threw it a little bit. But man, going to be rough moving forward for the service academies with, again, that's more just practice rules more than anything. And the practice rules and the new cut block rules that they're throwing out there as well, that are really putting a damper on that across the board. By the way, Ryan, as you were talking, looking through the odds, my brain is basically like, Jeff, you should bet on the Rams at 25-1. And then I'm like, no, brain, you're wrong on that. Don't do that. Save your money. Look for a better long shot. But, I mean, look, you had a team that was just decimated with injuries last year. Maybe they have a whole year of health, but asking Stafford to even play 14 games at this point is a lot.
And then just in general, right? We had questions about guys stepping away from the game. McVay, it was the media. Donald, it was retirement. Stafford, it was potentially retirement. To me, that you know, you should study the dead cap space before investing in a team. And I think when you look at this season coming up, you can perform with a lot of dead cap with a rookie quarterback, like the Eagles did last year. I think they were close to 33% dead cap. But when you have a quarterback making big bucks like the Rams, it's going to be tough. And we were discussing the Bucks earlier, but these are two teams that have almost a third of their salary cap is tied up in nothing. It's tied up in stuff that's not there helping the team. And I know you could potentially use the Giants last year or the Eagles the year before, big dead cap hits, still managed to salvage out a decent season. Again, the difference was quarterbacks on rookie deals. So for me, I'm out. I'd be more willing to put a bet on the Cardinals just to play the variance game in that division than I would the Rams. I do like the general idea of fading the 49ers, though. It's insane to me that you can be plus 350 to win the conference when you don't know who your quarterback's going to be.
Just looking at the dead cap numbers real quick, it's kind of amazing to look at it, and I'm just making sure my math is right here. The teams with the least amount of dead cap, the nine least teams are all in the AFC. Bengals, Chargers, Dolphins, Bills, Jaguars, Broncos, Chiefs, Jets. And guess what? If you're just going off the betting markets, 7 of those 8 are expected to be in the playoffs based off the betting market.
Relatively healthy cap situations. I think maybe the Broncos could end up with some situations if Sean Payton decides he wants to move on from Russell Wilson in an accelerated manner. But you look at all those other teams and they're relatively healthy cap situations. They're in their quote window. And, would I expect that a team like the Dolphins could start to accumulate some dead cap? Absolutely. A team like the Bengals? Absolutely not, because they're cheap. They're going to continue to do things the way they do things, and they're not going to kick the can down the road. They're not going to create these weird cash flow situations just to kind of sell your soul for that championship. So it is kind of interesting to study where the money is. But it even gives you more indication that there could potentially be some serious variance in the NFC.
Well, just looking at it right away today, I mean, the news coming out with Joe Mixon, it's pay cut or see you later for a pretty key piece to what Cincinnati has been doing over the last few years, even though, as we know, the only piece that really matters there is number 9. And that turned them from a joke to a legitimate Super Bowl contender every single year in Cincinnati. Ryan, just looking through the rest of this, too, and I know we kind of had this conversation when you and Sean were here Masters Week a few weeks ago. But I got to bring it up again in the AFC East because it still doesn't make sense to me that Miami, and this is across the board, and you can do better than the 3-1 that's out there at DraftKings right now. That Miami roster is excellent. It really just depends on can Tua Tagovailoa make it through a whole season or at least most of one season in one piece, but they should not be longer than the Jets, and they should not be $2 longer than the Buffalo Bills.
I mean, I certainly think you can step outside the conspiracy theory mind that I have sometimes and believe that maybe Brian Daboll was meaningful to Josh Allen, and maybe some of his reckless play down the season was that lack of correction in the weekly process. So yeah, the idea of wanting to fade the Bills this year and maybe fade the automatic Buffalo wins the division angle. And to your point, I think just having this Aaron Rodgers situation looming is creating value in whoever's not the Jets. And so to me, not only that, but Miami's in that window, that roster window we talk about, right? Tua's last year probably on the nice deal. They brought in a backup who I think more people believe can go out and win a game, and Mike White, as you mentioned. Almost certainly going to see a Mike White Jets game, and you know how that's going to go.
Oh, we all know how that's happening.
I mean, but even if Mike White has to start 4 to 6 games this year, I would be comfortable saying with this roster, he can win 3 to 4 games. Yeah. So I absolutely love playing them in the. I would even probably invest in them in the conference market, but them at 3-1 to win the division and them at serious plus odds to make the playoffs. Both of those just seem like you want to invest now because it's not going to get any better. As we start to watch Tyreek Hill run around in shorts, people are going to start to realize, oh, okay, this Miami team's live.
Miami, a coin flip right now to make the playoffs, minus 110 each side. I still think that's very good as well on the yes. Again, that division, even though it will be much more difficult than it has been, it was pretty difficult last year, all things considered. You still ended up with 3 teams that were around 500. The Jets still got the 7. But in the end, that's pretty good if you can get a coin flip on Miami. Ryan, in 15 seconds or less here, biggest shock of the draft will be?
Biggest shock of the draft, Hendon Hooker goes before Anthony Richardson and Will Levis.
There we go. See, I'm happy I saved that for the end because that is a good take right there.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.